Welcome back to another episode of Hockeycards.se, the podcast. Once again, it's Patrick and David here. Good morning, David. What time is it in Tennessee?
Good morning. It is 4:30. Well, actually, no, it's 4:43 in the AM here. So,
AM.
AM. Yeah. Well, it's a little early, but that's okay. When you have a kid or a new kid, that's the stuff that happens, right? A new kid or a podcast to do. You got to get up
or a podcast. Yeah, whichever of those two. Yeah. So it's 10:40 AM.
We need a sponsor.
I've been up for a couple of hours naturally, but you actually got up in the middle of the night for us to be able to do this. So
yeah, it's okay though. It's Memorial Day here, so
yep.
If I wasn't already off of work for the kid, I'd be off work anyway. So
yeah,
happy to do it. I do like to get up early when I'm not at work. That's for sure. Just not quite this early. So, and I slept on the floor last night in my daughter's room.
Okay.
Even better.
What's happened since we last recorded a podcast? Anything new in your life?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. There's been like I say, we had a kid a few weeks early. Unexpectedly about a week ago as of now. So that's great. Everybody's healthy, everything's good.
Yeah. And you're not sleeping at all? You weren't sleeping before either, but now you're not sleeping at all.
Yeah, but no, well, I mean, my wife's what's the word I'm looking for? She's managing the heavy lifting with the baby right now, obviously. But my other son he's turned into quite the nightmare since the baby was born. So he's not sleeping very well. So it's mainly tending to him.
All right.
The baby's actually quite peaceful. The baby's the easy part. It's the other kids that are a little something else. But yeah, man. So I'm off work for the next 2 months, which is great.
Yeah.
Anything big with you or?
Well, I think nothing dramatical. No new children has emerged.
Okay.
Or anything like that. I did. I mean, we shared some cooking tips on an episode a way back, you and I actually did try your what did you call it? Chess bars, right? Yeah. I've officially renamed it diabetes cake because it's 150% sugar and about 50% fat. So
yes.
So I actually made it. I tried it. The recipe is available on our Discord for anyone who'd like to give it a go. And I think it single-handedly turned my kids into sugar junkies, I think. So.
Ironically, I made some last night just because my daughter wanted to do cooking lessons. And so I was originally we were going to cook something, right? And but then it was determined because my in-laws are in town and everything with the kid, and my wife's sister came up to visit. It was her birthday, so it was determined we were going to go out to eat. So we couldn't do the cooking lesson that I had promised her we were going to do yesterday. So the only thing I could think of was, all right, let's make some chess bars. And so she actually made some chess bars last night, and it was, there's not many left today. And, we all shaved a couple months off of our life expectancies. But that's okay.
All right. So maybe some hockey content then. What about there was a tournament going on for the past 2.5 weeks called the World Championships. Played in Sweden and Denmark this year, actually. IIHF World Championships. Did you manage to watch any of it, or isn't it shown over there?
I could not see any of it because it is shown over here. I did not have the subscription service or whatever it is needed to see it. So no, you were gracious enough to keep giving me updates though. So that was awesome. And I did see highlights, right? So I guess I should start by saying, go USA, right? Like that's one.
Yeah.
Tage Thompson, golden goal.
Yeah.
Tage against the Machine, saw that last night. So that was awesome. Yeah, it's a little, it's one of those things where like when it's not always the absolute best of the best, like it might be on, it's a little, I don't want to say diminishes it a little, but to me, it kind of does because it's going on at the same time as the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah.
Like if it were a month from now, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because then you wouldn't have anything going on, right? And it would just be a much, much bigger event. But because it's going on the same time as the Stanley Cup, I mean, it's to me anyway, it's a little diminished just because you're not always going to get your absolute best on each team. Not that you would anyway, because who knows if the guys would want to do it, right? Like you saw that with some guys that you would.
Yeah, and you have injuries and everything after a long season, right? So,
right, and they want that rest, and so I get all that, but no, man, Bryce. I mean, you were keeping me posted really good in that USA game yesterday, and that was awesome because we had Memorial Day, so it was all racing yesterday, which Memorial Day is like the one day of the year where we watch racing all day. And,
it was the Indy 500, right? And the F1 in
well, the F1 was for me yesterday morning.
Right.
So it was, and there was I don't really care about NASCAR as much. I used to watch NASCAR a lot, and then they changed all the rules and all the stuff, so I kind of quit. But the F1 race was fun. But we won't get into all that. It's a hockey podcast. But I appreciate the heads up and you keeping me posted. I can't believe Canada lost.
Yeah.
That lineup that they had. But you can break that down a lot better than I can. So
holy shit. I mean, the thing is, I completely agree with you. I don't understand why they play this tournament at the same time as the Stanley Cup is ongoing, and I don't understand why they play it every year either. I mean, if you would play it like every 4 or even every alternate year, every 2 years, and you would play it when the NHL is not going on, I think that would increase the status of the tournament a lot. Now, this year I think was a bit special because it's the Olympics next year, and we had the Four Nations just a few months ago, right? So the rosters this time were actually pretty stacked. Basically, more or less every available player showed up that weren't injured for at least Canada, the US, Sweden, and the Czech Republic. So you had like Canada had Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Jordan Binnington. They had a fair amount of players from their Four Nations roster. The US had a great team as well, with pretty much centered around this 04-05 class of players born in 2004, 2005 who won the World Juniors and now also got to win the World Championship. But with, of course, people like Zach Werenski, who may well win the Norris Trophy for best defender in the NHL, and a few others of like amazing players. And Czechia, of course, had Pasternak. Sweden had William Nylander, and after Toronto got knocked out, and a bunch of good players. So, but the amazing thing there is, like you said, Canada was set to win this again, as they usually do, and got knocked out in the quarterfinals against Denmark. And that's also some of the beauty of this tournament, right? That there are nations here competing that aren't in the Four Nations, and that don't have that. I mean, Denmark had 2 NHL players on the roster. They had Nikolai Ehlers from Winnipeg and one guy from Vegas, and the rest of the players they're not half of the players aren't even in top European leagues. So it's amazing, and the most amazing thing about that game, because I watched it, is that they deserve to win. They outshot Canada 22-10 in the last period, and were dominating the last half of the game. So So that's I mean, that's an incredible result.
It's tough not to root for a team like that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like the big underdog, right? That would be
Yeah.
tough not to root for when watching that. Just
Yeah.
because, and that's incredible, right? You love a good underdog story. And yeah, but again, you know, going back to that whole why is the tournament now? I mean, just think about it. So, you know, what if Colorado had made a run? Well, there's no McKinnon play. You know what I'm saying? Like, and think of all the players that could be playing right now. You know, like Edmonton, for example, or for Dallas, or for, you know, all these guys that can't. You know, and then you had guys even like, you know, with Toronto getting eliminated late. You know, Austin Matthews ain't doing nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I did find it surprising. Did you find it surprising that Connor Bedard didn't play?
Yes, I did.
He
turned it down.
I did too.
I'm not sure if he has an injury or is worn out or something, but
so.
Because Celebrini played, for example. So
I would just think, you know, the opportunity for him to maybe play for a winner.
And maybe play on the same line as Crosby, for example.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of don't get that one. I mean, it's not like he's some aging veteran. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm very surprised he didn't play. Unless, again, like you said, there's an injury that we're not aware of. Maybe there is, but I didn't think he was. I just thought he turned it down because he wanted the rest.
Yeah. But this could be a fantastic tournament if it were played. Maybe not every year and after the Stanley Cup playoffs, because like we talked about on our previous episode as well, I mean, when you saw in the Four Nations how much it means to their players to represent the country. That's why the players are coming to the Worlds. They get a chance to play for their country, right? And they get a chance to win something for their country. So that means so much, and so much more than just the regular season grind with a franchise. So making the World Championships a special tournament like the Olympics I think that would elevate the status tremendously. But
100%.
But big congratulations to the US on winning. I mean, it's the second time ever the US wins the tournament, and the last time was 92 years ago. So
about the last time Carolina won a finals playoff game? As we segue into that.
Yeah. It's a bit of a national uproar here. We almost had a public lynching of the national team coach here when we lost the semifinals to the US here, because now Sweden has played 7 years in the World Championships without making it to the final, and that's a worst ever performance. So some people are pretty upset here, and mainly, I mean, losing, you can't expect to beat the US every time we play, especially not with a team like this. So that's not the issue, but the issue is pretty much the way Sweden came out to the game. They weren't prepared. They weren't competing for the first 40 minutes, and I think they were outshot 14-3 in the first period by the US or something like that. So it was only a game in the last period, basically. So that has gotten people kind of annoyed.
Yeah.
So let's see if he gets to keep his job or not. It was great fun watching the television broadcast here when they interviewed him after the game, and they were hurling shit at each other, the journalists and the national team coach. That was intense.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
That's awesome. Well, and two, the thing is, I guess, again, going back to that whole, this doesn't need to be during the Stanley Cup playoffs, because from a viewership perspective, you know, what's more important? Which one are you going to watch if you can only watch one, right? And like, you know, I guess selfishly here in the US, and it's kind of the opposite for you guys, because for you guys over there, these tournaments happening over there, right? So it's happening. You actually get to watch hockey without having to watch it at 2 a.m. or whatever time it is, right?
Exactly.
But, you know, for us, if it's, you know, 10 a.m. on a work day, you know, I mean, we can't watch it, you know, a lot of it. So,
of course.
But again, there also has to be that element of, with the Four Nations, there wasn't any other hockey going on.
Yeah.
We're on break. So there's nothing else to watch.
Yeah.
Hockey wise. And now you've got the Stanley Cup. I mean, that's they need to just make it after the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Or I don't know, do it, maybe, well, because now I'm trying to think of the player's perspective, like actually let them get their rest and get them,
Yeah.
So I guess the answer is, like you said, don't do it every year, do it every other year, what if it was done like, so how the Olympics do like the summer and then 2 years later is the winter, then 2 years later. So there's every 2 years there's a thing.
Yeah.
So maybe do this on the midpoint.
Yeah.
When there's not an Olympics, I guess, something like that.
Yeah. That's the way football does it, or soccer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's every 4 years, and it's at odds with the Summer Olympics, right? So that would, I think, help greatly. And also, I mean, looking at the NHL, do you really need all these preseason games in September? No. I mean, do they add anything except injury on star players?
Right. I agree.
So start the season 4 weeks earlier. Why do you wait until October? I mean, start the season 1st of September, end the Stanley Cup 1 month earlier, and every 2 or 4 years you can do a World Championship with the best players available.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And that argument I've heard made on pretty much every sport. Why do we have the long, baseball? Why do we have the month and a half long preseason? I mean, I get some of it. You're getting, and baseball maybe is a little, it's a less, for such a less physically demanding sport. Everybody by God's hurt all the time, but but especially like football, why do you need all the preseason? I mean, basketball.
I mean, I understand why you need. I understand why you need a preseason. Why players need to train and get into physical fitness and build muscle and stamina and things. But and especially for hockey, the preseason games are typically mostly prospects. And when they add the stars towards the end, they're sort of like an all-star game where the result doesn't matter and you're not really playing a physical game. And then all of a sudden, some young guy hits Crosby with a boarding and Crosby's out, and holy shit, So, maybe at least or keep preseason games to prospects and then have like one game before the season, just before the season starts, to get everyone up to speed or something. But do you really need like a month and a half of that? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny, part of me thinks, well, these are millionaire, billionaire athletes getting paid all this money. It's your job. Stay in shape.
Yeah.
Why should you, you know what I'm saying? Like be doing the things you need to do year round. I mean, if you have nothing to do for a whole off season, but play golf every day, run. I mean, these guys can all, do what you need, and I'm sure most of them do. But then I look back on it though, and like, in baseball, you used to have spring training to get in shape. These guys would do nothing but go out to the bars every night all off season, and they would come to spring training to try to get in shape. And there's something I kind of miss about that too, because you also didn't have all the injuries back then. Yeah. Now you have all these guys that are more concerned with being like finely tuned athletes and, looking good in magazines or whatever. And now they're all always hurt, all of them. Yeah. And it's just, we need more fat guys with, seriously, who drink beer and eat hot dogs in the club out that. Like, that's what we need in baseball, at least, because those guys never seem to get hurt. There's no muscle to pull. There's no, and they still
they don't have any muscle to pull.
Yeah. So like, I kind of see both sides there, but I do think the preseasons are too long. I know that, the way it works in baseball is, you have the long off season, you miss it, spring training starts, and I'm all excited. Yeah. And then there's like the first spring training game, which some of your star players play in the first game, and they'll play inning. And then they come out, and it's dudes that you never heard of. And, when the jersey numbers start to get up there and like, hey, jersey number 72, that guy's got no shot. You know, and and as the preseason wears on, the guys stay in the games a little bit longer and blah blah blah. But it just, that initial excitement wears off after the first week or two. It's like, okay, well, all right, let's just get the season going now. And also, you're right, that risk of injury is crazy.
I mean, with the types of seasons you have in hockey and baseball, where you play a billion regular season games. I mean, it's not like every regular season game is a playoff kind of game with high intensity and focus, and so if it takes you the first 4 or 5 games to get back up to regular game speed, that doesn't matter in a season with 82 games in hockey and about 4,500 in baseball, right?
So 4,502.
Oh, right, 4,502. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. I remember when I was a kid, the Swedish Hockey League over here might have had a few fewer teams than they do now, not sure, but everybody just played each other once at home and once away. One home game and one away game against all the teams in the league. So you only had like 35 games in a season or 36 games in a season or something like that. So that meant that every game mattered. I mean, if you had a really poor result and performance in one game, that could actually hurt you.
Yeah.
But over an 82 game season, that, I mean, doesn't matter all that much, right?
Well, and as playoffs expand, right, which happens in every sport, is you start letting more and more teams in, and all, next thing you know, half the field gets in. Yeah, that's one thing that I used to love about, because I used to be huge into college football. Even 10 years ago, every single game mattered like it was life and death. Because if you lost one game, you might not get into the championship at the end of the year.
Yeah,
if you had one loss. Now you can have people cried for it for years, and now it's here, and now it sucks because you can lose 3 games and still get into a playoff, and just I don't know. It definitely diminishes the regular season quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, but I can see all sides of the argument, and they make that argument.
Yeah, we want to watch sports all year round, right? So that's
that.
And the leagues and the clubs, of course, want the revenue. So of course they want to play as much as possible, right? Yeah,
for sure. But that's the whole thing about look at college basketball, right? No one watches college basketball for the whole regular season. But when the NCAA tournament starts, people who've never seen a basketball game all of a sudden fill out a bracket and watch it. And it's a huge deal for the month of March, right? But the regular season doesn't matter at all, because you can lose 25 games, and still get into the final tournament. If you just happen to win your conference, get hot, and win your conference tournament, you're in the dance.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does make that more special, but overall, I think you would not want that pretty much in any other sport, I don't think. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
all right.
I will say that, kind of segueing to Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but for me, these semifinals, unless you're just a big fan of one of the 4 teams, it's been almost unwatchable.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's the games haven't been, for the most part, super close. You look up and first of all, Florida is, they are embarrassing Carolina. I mean, these games aren't even close.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what was it last night? No, not last night. 2 nights ago, it was close for 2 periods. And then all of a sudden Florida scores 5 goals in the third. What's going on here? And then you got, Edmonton put up a 6 spot last night. These games haven't been particularly close.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you may have stretches where they're close, but at the end of the day, most of these. So again, unless you're just a big fan of one of the big 4 that are left, it's well, okay, here's another 6-2 game.
Yeah.
And so for someone like me personally, who's not a particular fan of either of the 4 teams, not that I hate them, I don't have a dog in the fight, right?
Yeah.
It's you just want to see really good hockey, and you want to see tight games. Oh, give me overtimes, give me, chaos, pandemic. So far that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
Well, they're mostly on at 3 a.m. in the morning, so I haven't watched a lot of it. But the things that I have watched, I think that Florida has an amazing team. We all knew that. They've been amazing for the last couple of seasons. They've won the Stanley Cup. But it's like they're in a league of their own in these playoffs. They've gotten here to the conference finals, and even though they went 7 games to the Maple Leafs, you always had this feeling, right, that Florida's going to win this. And now they're here, and now they're 3 games up on Carolina, and it's going to take an enormous miracle for Carolina to turn that around. So and also, I mean, I feel like the Oilers is a completely different team, right? I mean, I get this impression of Florida being extremely well built. You have skill, you have grit, you have physical players, you have annoying players, you have technical players, you have and you have depth, right? And a fantastic goalie. So it's pretty close to having a complete team, right? You have all the components, and with the depth as well, because that's usually a thing, right? Whoever has the best third line wins the championship because the salary cap is a thing, but they do have depth as well. So while I think the Oilers is a completely different setup, they have the best player in the world and maybe the second best offensive player in the world as well in Draisaitl. And then it's rock and roll. I mean, they can win. They can score 8 goals in a period. And they can also concede 8 goals in a period because they all of a sudden they don't know how to play defense. So I mean, anything when an Oilers game starts, anything can happen, right? So while you sort of know that Florida will sort of grind their opponent down over the course of a game or a series and will win, but I do wonder if maybe when the championships are finished, if maybe Toronto's performance will be viewed in a slightly different light by fans and media, maybe Toronto media specifically, because they had them at 7 games, and even though they collapsed in game 7, they got them to 7 games, and it doesn't look like anyone else is going to be close to doing that, at least not until the finals, right? So.
Right. Well, and it's like you said too, that there was always that feeling with Florida that they just knew they were going to win. Like, that's no panic at all. No, hey, we've been here, we've won this, we know what we're doing. Like there's no pressure on them, and there was no panic. And it's you always knew, like, and then I guess game 7 was awful because of it wasn't a game, right? Like it was a wholesale slaughter. And so, it's funny how Bob didn't have a great year. Bob standards, and all of a sudden he gets in the playoffs, and you get down to here, and it's like, oh my God, now here we go. But then the same thing you say for Edmonton, right? Like, how horrible was the goaltending? And then now all of a sudden against Dallas of all teams, they're showing up, and it's just so. And I think if it ends up being Florida and Edmonton again in the rematch, if that goaltending shows up for Edmonton, you never know, right? Like, I mean, I would still, if I was a gambling man, take Florida, but I'm sure they'd be the Vegas favorites, but
definitely,
but
imagine what an ending, right? If you have Florida Oilers again this year, and Oilers actually win it this time, like in Game 7, third overtime period, McDavid scores. That's like the perfect Hollywood movie, right? And,
for sure.
I mean, he has to. McDavid and Draisaitl, they have to win a cup at some point in their career, because anything else isn't fair, right?
Yeah.
They are so good.
For sure.
They need to have a championship ring.
Yeah. Now I will, but at least though, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Draisaitl just sign like a long contract? Like, isn't he locked up forever now?
I think he is. Yeah.
Signed a massive deal this past year. Yes. I mean, we'll see. But like with Toronto, though, what's going to happen in the offseason, right? Because aren't two of the core four up? Aren't their contracts up now? So I don't know. But
interestingly, I mean, the guy of those four who actually showed up to the playoffs most was Nylander. He led them in scoring. Didn't in the last couple of games against Florida, but in the rest of the series. And I mean, Matthews wasn't brilliant in terms of scoring in the playoffs. And that's interesting. Like you said, Bobrovsky didn't have a really great year, and now he's fantastic in the playoffs. And
but it's just like all of them.
Yeah.
Well,
except
I mean,
for
Hellebuck. That is like, well, I guess I mean for Florida's perspective. In the regular season, they start resting all these guys with these injuries late in the year, and it's like, all right, we know we've got this thing in the bag. Let's just get everyone, rested up and all this, and then here you are, right now they're I still cannot believe that they got Marchand just to add to that. Like, all right, come on now.
That's an incredible. I mean, he's their top scorer at least in the series against Toronto. He's the top scorer.
It's nuts. But I mean, now this brings up an interesting topic. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, because I have thoughts, and this could be any sport, but rest versus rust.
Yeah.
Because Florida's going to sweep, right? Like, so
there's a good chance. Yeah.
Dallas, Edmonton goes 7.
Yeah.
Florida may just sit at the house for a week or so. What happens in that first game of of the actual finals? Are you someone that believes that too much rest in between is a bad thing, or would you rather have all the rest? You know what I'm saying? What's your thoughts?
I think that I mean, it's like you said about baseball earlier, right? Everyone is injured all the time, and nobody is out on the field smoking and eating hot dogs, and that's of course because elite professional sports these days are about maximizing everything. So everyone is right on the edge of injury all the time, right? So I think that my personal view is you'll take the rest any chance you get, because you have so many players that are worn out and are playing through injuries. So any day you get that they can rest and see a physio and be in an iced water tub, you'll take that any day of the week, I think. I also think that if you have a long rest, I think that the other team will have a definite upside in the first game.
Yes.
Because they're already going, right? But I don't think in a series over 7 games, I don't think that will be the deciding factor, I think.
Yeah.
So you might come out of a series starting 0-1 in games, but all your banged up players are more fit and more ready to go. So
yeah. And I think you're right. I think any athlete you interview would say the same thing. They'd rather have the rest. I can tell you most any coach would rather have the rest. Well, I will say there was one, I think the Braves in baseball, Brian Snitker, they had that situation. It was 2 years ago now, where they were going to have a long kind of layoff, and he was convinced it negatively affected him. And I could see that be in hockey. I think in a physical sport like hockey, I think you want the rest.
Yeah.
But again, it could lead, just like you said, game 1 could be a little sloppy.
Yeah.
I remember one thing I will say about and not to get too far off topic, but like the playoffs in college football and stuff now. I remember a couple years ago before this launched, there was a couple times where a team like Ohio State might literally have to go a month without playing a game.
Wow.
And then play the title game. And then because, you know, their final game of the year was always like the final week of November against Michigan. And if and they're always really good, Ohio State. So like they would beat Michigan, be undefeated. Like, all right, you're going to play for the title. That's not going to be till like January the 7th, 8th, 9th.
Yeah.
And here it is, the end of November. So you're going to go a whole month plus without playing an actual game.
Yeah.
And then come out and get lambasted half the time. Like, you know, now, I mean, the other team that they faced might not have played a game for 2 weeks, but still, you talk a month off. That's ridiculous. So at least
that's like you almost need a preseason before.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. But yeah, I do think that's going to happen, right? Like it's because I mean, Florida's just Carolina. I mean, I was actually rooting for them because again, I don't have particular rooting interest in any of the teams that are out there, right? I was kind of just rooting for Carolina. Once it got to this Final Four, you know, that's not going to happen, obviously. So I guess now I'll root for Edmonton. Just like you said, see McDavid get one.
Yeah.
But I don't want Dallas to win. I know a lot of people hate Florida. I don't hate Florida, but I mean, I'd rather see Edmonton win it than Florida, but hey, it is what it is. I want it to be good hockey, good, enjoyable. Let's go 7 games. Let's go. And then whoever wins. You know, but yeah, hopefully that's what'll happen. Now you were telling me, and this is the difference between here in America and Sweden. You get how long for paternity leave?
We get 480 days per kid.
That is awesome. That is incredible. So I get what, 8 weeks?
The 480 days we get is shared between the two parents. So you get 480 days in total.
Oh, okay.
And then you can share it, and you can share it almost any way you like. I think there are 90 days reserved that needs to be taken by either parent, and the others you can share however you want. But I mean, I've had I was surprised that you got 8 weeks as well, because I've had a few American colleagues of mine that I worked with before that didn't get anything. So is that something that's unique to where you're employed, or is that a new thing in the US?
No, I mean, so with my first 2 kids, I didn't get it. But I really feel like here more and more companies are offering it. You know, I don't know who doesn't offer it anymore here. You know, since probably 2017, 2018, something like that. When everybody started offering it. So I'm sure there's plenty that don't, but I don't know of any. Like it seems like everybody does now. But again, it's only, you know, for me, it's 8 weeks.
Yep.
You know, now maternity leave is a lot longer, but for paternity leave, it's 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So another difference is you had Swedish Mother's Day yesterday, right?
Yesterday. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you guys do, and ours was 2
weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I think. Yeah.
Now, what in Sweden? What do you do for Mother's Day typically? What's a typical Swedish Mother's Day?
Well, it's not a big splash kind of holiday like Christmas or birthday parties. It's typically kind of low key. It's typically like breakfast in bed, a few gifts made by the children, maybe chocolate, flowers, that kind of thing, and also maybe trying to reduce the stress of that day from, you know, all the things that you need to do in your life on weekends, and just try to sort of enjoy the day, maybe go out to dinner or go out to lunch or something like that. So
it's the same as it is here, basically.
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. Actually. I don't know why it's not on the same week. Why it's 2 weeks apart? Whoever decided that, I have no clue why. But yeah, it's the same thing. With daylight savings time. So
really, oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we both have it, but
Uh-huh.
it's like 3 weeks off for some
Okay.
reason. We changed the clocks like 3 weeks apart. So yeah.
Here we can't even get, so we have, and I hope I'm right in saying this, in the US we have 2 states that don't change times.
Okay.
Arizona, and I want to say Hawaii, but I could be wrong about Hawaii. Here where I live, we begged for years to come off of it.
Yeah.
We don't want to change time.
Yeah.
Because there's certain parts here. So Tennessee is a very horizontal state. It's a long state.
Yeah.
And I live in the Eastern time zone, but 30 minutes west of me is the Central time zone, which is an hour behind. And certain places there, like when the time changes, it gets dark at like 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just no, and so, and our state actually voted to get rid of it, to stay on whatever time this would be. I never know which one is, but the one where it stays sunnier much later. But here's the hang up. And I think other states voted on this too and want to get rid of it. So even though we passed that resolution a year or two ago, we have to wait on the federal government to hear it and pass it.
Okay.
Why the hell we have to wait on the federal government to hear it and pass it? Because that may not happen for another 20 years.
Yeah.
So,
it's the same thing here. There's been a big debate on why. I mean, originally this was right to increase the daylight in the early hours of the day. So before like electricity and things, so farmers could get out and work, things like that. So it really isn't needed anymore. And there's been a lot of studies on it, and popular opinion here in general, people hate it. So we also want to get rid of it, but it's the same thing here. Nothing happens every single year. It's we still have it. So yeah, it's interesting. And also where I live, which is I live in the far south of Sweden, but it's still pretty far north. So so that means that because we are pretty far north, I mean, we have a lot of sunlight in the summer. I mean, we have like in the middle of the summer here, we might have like 3.5 hours, 4 hours of complete darkness, something like that, and the rest is sunlight. But then again, in the winter, it's the other way around, right? So it gets light late and it gets dark early. So yeah, I think most people would actually prefer to have it light a bit longer in the afternoon and a bit earlier in the morning, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For me, and it's like here in the wintertime, and I guess that's why we have seasonal depression, right? Is you go to work and it's dark. You get home from work and it's dark, or maybe you have 30 minutes and that's it. It's just, all the daylight happens when you're at work.
Yeah.
And so, it gets rough. Now you're near the Arctic Circle, right?
Yeah. So the Arctic Circle passes through the north of Sweden.
Right.
Sweden is a very long country, though. So I'm personally not very close to it, but it does pass through the northern part of Sweden. So basically, I mean, if you know roughly what the map of the world looks like, and you have like Sweden, Norway, Finland at the top north in Europe, right? If you would take Sweden and turn it on its head, the northern tip of Sweden would be in Milan, Italy. So it's a pretty long country.
Yeah, really. Okay.
Not huge, but long. Yeah.
Yeah. I was watching a Grand Tour episode and they were in Sweden, but they never came below the Arctic Circle.
Yeah, right, of course.
So,
yeah.